showing up as we are, and I'm recording now too. So, hello, viewer, potential viewer. It's Michael and I. We're going to talk. We're going to record the episode 8 of Connection Over Coffee with the Loneliness Guy, talking about how the world needs you as you are. So this could be a bit hit and miss. I can edit the sound, which is down here, but I don't know how to edit the video. So I don't know, like the next few seconds could just be cringeworthy television. And as I kind of lose the ability to speak in coherent sentences for my intro. Michael, as you'll see over there, is like cool, calm, collected. He will reach for a glass of wine every so often, as if on cue, and take a sip. It's not at all 1 o'clock here. It's like 25 to 1 in the afternoon here in Wellington. It's like 25 to 9 there.
Yep.
Yep. In Ontario. So yeah, kind of hating a lot on Michael right now. Hating on. That's a very American thing to say. Anyway, what was that preposition there for? Anyway. All right. Are you good?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's okay. Let's do it. I'm going to read from my script here. Hey, welcome to Connection Over Coffee with me, Phil McAuliffe, the Loneliness Guy. We're going to have a great chat with Michael DiIorio from Wellismo Coaching about how the world needs you, how the world needs us as we are right now. Say hi, Michael.
Hello, everybody.
Before we get going, I want to say that this podcast is all about destigmatizing loneliness and promoting authentic connection for gay men globally. It contains content relating to the mental, emotional, and physical well-being of gay men. If that's going to offend you or anyone in earshot, now's the time for you to move on. Okay, so now that you and Michael are here, how about you both go and get us a table where we can chat, and I'll go get the coffee sorted. This is like the sound of the coffee going, which I'll be editing out.
Okay, what happens now?
Okay, here we go. So, Michael, this is the first time that you've joined me and the listener for a chat over coffee with Connection Over Coffee with the Loneliness Guy podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and before we launch into the chat, tell us a bit about yourself and your work and why you're awesome.
So thank you so much for having me. I am a coach for gay men. I work in Canada. So for me, it is Sunday evening, hence the wine or coffee. And I work with gay men primarily. My specialty is working on developing genuine self-confidence from the inside out, and all of the many issues that gay men have to deal with after coming out. So loneliness being one of the main ones that I hear many men of all ages talk about.
Yeah, there is quite obviously a rich vein of content when we talk about loneliness. Indeed, it's like the whole premise of my work and many sort of factors, mental, physical, and emotional factors that have loneliness as a common denominator, which, Michael, I know that you, on your website, you have your story of how you have come to do this work. And it's about, and loneliness does play a part in your story, right?
Totally. I mean, I have always felt like as someone who has often enjoyed the company of a lot of friends, and I have a supportive family, I still have felt very, very lonely at many different parts of my life. As a kid, um, even when I had a loving partner who I love very much, I still felt lonely even with him.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I am really passionate about destigmatizing is that loneliness is not necessarily solvable by having more friends or by having a partner,
Mm. Mm.
because I have felt very connected alone and I have felt very lonely with people. I've also felt very lonely in solitude and I've felt very connected with people. But people generally, I think, assume that their loneliness has to do with the fact that they don't have a partner.
Yeah.
And while there is something to be said about wanting connection and a sense of belonging and intimacy, which of course, as social people, we do, I don't want people to think that once they do have that partner, that all their loneliness problems are solved.
Right. Right. And this is, listener, Michael and I work together with, Michael has information on my website, thelonelinessguy.com, about his products, and I'm can more than recommend Michael's coaching, um, because Michael, basically from that answer, Michael understands what it's like, to be a lonely gay man, or a gay man who experiences loneliness from time to time in various different ways. Because the reason that I'm so keen to work with Michael is that I know he understands what, listener, you and me both understand, how hard it can be to simply sit with loneliness, how hard it can be to click play on this podcast or read my content, because in pressing play, in opening the blog, in going to the website, we have to confront the stigma within ourselves that we may possibly be lonely. And so simply coming and having coffee with me in this podcast, as virtual as it might be, and I would love to have coffee with you in person, I recognize how much courage it takes. So this is actually a very safe space, that I do want to create here, where we can talk about the thoughts and feelings of loneliness, and then the path to authentic connection that we must take if we are to move beyond our thoughts and feelings of loneliness. And so, listener, you just heard, like, Michael gets that, and that's why I'm so excited to both have him here and to have him as a partner with the Loneliness Guy. It is on that second part of the that loneliness equation. The first part being the realization that we might be lonely, and letting us accept that. And then once we've accepted that we're lonely, we need to do something about it. And that's what I want to talk to Michael about today in this chat, and about how we can take a step, and the fear that we need to manage, to work with, to take a step. So that's why we're calling it The World Needs You As You Are Right Now, because, Michael, would you agree that the world needs us right now as we are?
100%. And I would even argue that the world needs us as we were yesterday too, but that's all gone. I think the world is changing. I think we all know that. I would say what I would have to offer on that is, if we're waiting for something to change before we put ourselves out there, before we share our gifts with the world, before we shine our light, before we start a project, before we do anything, you're going to be waiting for a long time. And all that does is prolong that feeling of loneliness, emptiness, stuckness. I hear that a lot. People often tell me they feel stuck or they feel empty.
Mm,
Um, Loneliness is a byproduct of that, but those three kind of really go together. I find with the clients that I deal with: stuck, empty, lonely.
yeah,
And I think one of the things you can do first is, as you said, accept it, acknowledge it. But before you push it away, I think the allowing is the first step. Um, we all we all feel lonely at some point, and that's why I love your work, Phil. Like when I first came across you and I read destigmatizing loneliness, I was like, like sign me up. Where do I sign up? Because it's so true. Loneliness is like any other kind of human emotion, and
yeah,
fear, joy, anger, sadness. If we could all accept that at some point or another, we're all going to feel it, and that we can all agree that it's a pretty terrible feeling, then it takes away some of that, I think, resistance that we have to it.
yeah, yeah. I think that, yeah, you're so right. And not allowing ourselves to feel lonely is akin to not letting ourselves feel joy. And indeed, if we are avoiding loneliness, odds are we're not letting ourselves feel other emotions as well. Like, we're not letting ourselves be present in a moment to feel joy. We don't let
Right.
ourselves feel happiness because we can always, feel that, potentially there's another shoe to drop, or it's too good to be true. So we don't feel the positive to the full extent because we're not letting ourselves feel another emotion, like negative in inverted commas, emotion like loneliness. And frankly, I think I can fully understand it. I'd like, without doubt, fully understand it. And loneliness makes us think and do some pretty weird stuff that really does not serve us. But there's such power, just like in owning our sexuality. There's such power, which we do within ourselves, we do with other people, and we do as a community, which goes to the three pillars of connection there. Like, owning our sexuality, owning the fact that we're gay, is a powerful example of what happens when we decide to be authentically ourselves. And we know that it's not easy at times, or indeed, it's not easy for far too many men all of the time. Using loneliness, we can tweak that to replace sexuality with loneliness, and there is still such power in those thoughts and feelings, in owning those thoughts and feelings, because it helps us make the change that we need.
Right. I would say we have to own all of our emotions.
Yeah,
So you're right. You can't try to numb loneliness or fear or anything that doesn't feel good. You can't just numb one emotion. What you do when you're doing that is you learn how to numb all the emotions. So that's why when people tell me, "Oh, I kind of feel very apathetic," I'm like, "Well, yeah,"
yeah,
because you've learned how to numb all of these things you don't want to feel, but at the same time, you're numbing how you experience joy, how you experience connection. You're numbing how to experience happiness
mm,
and that
mm.
light feeling. You can't selectively numb emotion. You
No,
you turn off that entire skill of feeling it fully and owning it.
yeah, God. And listener, if there was any doubt why, I love Michael and his work, I hope that doubt has gone right now, because, this is the type of work that Michael and well, work and the conversations that we have, that makes him, like, well, I just love him and his work, really, because it goes to the point of him getting it. Um,
Well,
yeah,
I think it's because I experienced it for so long, and at a time when, so I am, for the listener who doesn't know me, I live in Toronto, Canada. It is the largest city in Canada. It is by far the gayest city in Canada, and probably one of the gayest cities on this side of the world. And I live right downtown in the middle of the village. And for a good chunk of my late 20s and early 30s, I would experience loneliness, and like I was just saying, I would want to resist with kinds of all the ways we all love to numb, right? So my favorite was sex and Grinder. Grinder was my best friend for when I was feeling lonely, because I'd pop on there and it gave me a sense of company, and then I would, hook up or do whatever. But at the end of the day, it never really satisfied me at the end. And Phil, we've talked about this before. Those connections, I was looking for a connection, and I was wanting a connection, and what my actions were doing was getting a very ephemeral, quick hit of validation. And
Yeah,
those are two very different things.
yeah,
And I think showing up for those hookups, I felt great in the moment, and it absolutely satisfied my ego. um, you know Having someone who wants me sexually or physically is always feels very good. But at the end of it, I would go back to feeling lonely and empty,
mm,
and I would do this on repeat for years, until finally, you know I something changed for me, and then I really started to learn about what I needed, and realizing that the actions I was taking was not in alignment with what I actually was searching for. And then I had to pivot from there. So I think I get it, because I've seen it all. I mean, there's also numbing by alcohol, parties, drugs, work. I've seen that,
work.
going to the
Hmm.
gym excessively. You name it, shopping. Like there's no shortage of ways we numb our loneliness. Social media is another one, and that one's we can talk a lot about how social media gives us the sense of connection again, but depending on how we use it, and depending on who we're following and what our mindset is going into it, it could actually have the opposite effect. So yeah, I
Right.
feel like I know loneliness because I've been there a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, well, I'm keen to explore in this chat how we can realize that we're lonely to an extent, like to the full extent, or at least a partial extent, own it and claim it as something that we're thinking and feeling, and then know that we have to do something about it. And this chat focuses on how we, before we do something about it, how we want to get it right the first time. We want to do it right. Indeed, we might want to do it perfectly, whatever it is in that moment. And for you, for me, for the listener, the it might be as simple as picking up the phone and talking to someone who we haven't spoken to for a while, and working through the thoughts and feelings of potentially rejection if they don't answer the phone, or they don't want to hear from us, or whatever it is, all the way through to like a major, in inverted commas again, life decision, where we can want to, particularly if we're being seen by many people, want to wait until we feel ready enough to be seen by so many people. So that's what I want to
Mhm.
talk about today in this chat. And Michael, I'm keen to hear your thoughts on what stops us from letting the world see us as we are. Just a minor question there. If you could answer that in a few sentences, that'd be great.
Oh, just a few sentences, Phil. Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Um, that is a great question. And I recently had to come to face with that on my own, starting my own coaching business and putting myself out there. I'm a naturally very shy, introverted person. But I think what my fear was, and I'm pretty sure our listener would relate to this, is a fear of failure and a fear of rejection. If I had to boil it down, those are two really, really big ones for me. You know, it takes a lot to put yourself out there. It takes a lot to speak for what you believe in. It takes a lot to put out a creative piece, like whether it's a podcast, a blog, art, music, whatever, anything that you create from yourself and you put it out there. As soon as you put it out there, it is open to criticism, it is open to judgment, and it is open to rejection. And so I think a lot of us, when I say us, I'm talking about me, but I think our listeners can relate, is yeah, like you said, you kind of wait because you want it to be perfect, which of course you want your creation to be admired and you want it to be the best that it could be. And you want it to be a good representation of you, of course. However, there is a fine line between wanting to serve and put your best self out there and just simply wanting to serve and help others. So if I didn't get over my own fear of rejection, of fear of failure, I would still not be doing what I do. And I think of now all of the clients that have helped me or that have told me that I have helped them. And I think to myself, if I let the fear win, they would have never experienced that transformation. And
Right.
that keeps me going. Even when I
That's
fuck up, even when I
yeah,
fall flat on my face, and I do all the time,
yeah.
even when I put out an offer there and no one takes it, even when I write a great blog and it gets like 10 views, I still say, you know what? It's still worth it.
Yeah.
So for anyone out there who has something that they want to contribute, I don't care if it's a delicious muffin recipe or a movie script or whatever it is, a book, doesn't matter. Um, do it because someone out there is looking for exactly what it is you have stored in your mind, and they're waiting for you to get over that fear. And they're going to be very thankful for you when you do it.
Love it. Love it. Particularly, and there's so many things to unpick there. And I know my partner, Jeff, if the listener has a good muffin recipe, Jeff will want to hear that. And he's a baker. Um, so that's going to be very troubling for me. He's a baker, I'm an eater, and it's going to be very hard to continue resisting the treat, particularly if the listener submits a good muffin recipe. That's just going to be the end of me.
I want to have some too. Now that I've
Yeah,
said it, I want one.
I know, right? You know, this is a coffee shop that we're having this conversation in. Someone orders a muffin.
Right?
But there's so many things to unpack there because, you know, and I want to go to one point, and that is the fear of failure. And I love how and you said it so eloquently too, like, you know, even through your doubts and, you know, the quality of the product and, you know, the, whatever it was, like the doubts that you have in your mind, you have done it, worked through it, you identified why you're doing it, and then got feedback saying that you've helped people, which, you know, you've done something that is in alignment with your values and, you know, and your purpose. Your point about putting something, creating something and putting it into the world that hasn't been there before, I think is the point there that I really want to explore, because for us gay men who experience loneliness, which is every gay man, because it applies to every human. We all experience loneliness, whether we want to or not, as we've already talked about. The thing that can really stop us, and by us, I mean me too, do not want that any doubt to be there, that can stop us from putting ourselves out there, from saying something, is that fear of failure, that fear of rejection, that fear of judgment. And so what do we do, Michael, when it comes to fear? What as humans, as gay men, what do we do to experience or not experience fear?
The listener's going to hate this answer, but there's no way around it, my friends. There is no way around it. The way to experience, or what did you say, get over fear, is to feel it. That is the only way. The only way around it is right through it. There are no shortcuts here, and there are no magic pills, and there are no secret recipes, despite what people might tell you about, finding the antidote to be fearless. The way to be fearless is to feel the fear. Because paradoxically, you just get used to it, and then you realize time after time that, oh yeah, here's fear. This is how I've done it. So as I was saying, I don't like being on video. I don't like putting myself out there for any of my viewers. If you just go to my Instagram, Wellismo_Coach, you will see a lot of fucking videos. And you'll be like, this guy is not afraid of doing video. He does one like almost every day. But let me tell you, every day, the fear is there. What happens is the first time is terrifying, and my stomach gets really heavy, my chest gets really heavy, I get shortness of breath, all the things, my face gets flushed, everything's happening, I get sweaty, I get very sweaty hands and feet. I don't know if that's anybody else, but that's me. And but you do it, and you do it once, and then you don't die. Nothing happens. You don't die.
That's a very good indicator of success, the continuation of life. Yes.
Yeah. So then you do it again, and you just become really well acquainted with fear. So the way I just described how I feel it in my body is one of the techniques that I use, that I would recommend. When you're feeling afraid, instead of trying to resist it, just sit in it. I promise you guys, unless it is like, unless your life is in danger, that kind of fear, but chances are it's not that kind of fear where your life is in danger, it won't kill you. Sit with it, listen to where it is in your body, really connect with your body in these instances. I find that to be very therapeutic for me, and it doesn't feel good, but then you just realize, oh, okay, fear is this heaviness in my stomach, and it's usually accompanied by a thought that goes something along the lines of, you suck, you're going to fail, no one's going to watch this, no one's going to like you, that guy's going to reject you, that person who's interviewing you is going to say you're unqualified for the job, whatever it is.
Oh, good, because I'm glad you raised it, because I was going to say that.
Yeah. and feel it, and feel it again, and then do it again, and do it again, and do it again, and feel it more. And in getting used to it, it takes away its power. So I guess what I'm saying is we're afraid of being afraid.
That's so true. So true. And Michael, as you were saying that, it's both, for me at least, both tremendously comforting to know that someone somewhere in the world is thinking and feeling much the same thoughts and feelings that I'm thinking and feeling. And that at once is both comforting and inspiring, because the quality of the product, the message that you're putting out there, is what's needed. And for me as well, knowing that we're not alone, not alone in our loneliness, not alone in our nerves, not alone in, well, nerves kind of undersells it, you know, being shit scared to be seen, but paradoxically, desperately wanting to be seen. That, you know, and then we can get into all sorts of thoughts and behaviors around people pleasing, getting to all sorts of things about, frankly, like, these are heavy words that I'm about to say, conniving and manipulating how other people see us and perceive us. And
how much time we got?
I know. It's like, and you know, Michael, and listener, you know that I've said a couple of times that I have over 27 more topics, and I've just named a few of those that I want to write on and have a conversation about in this podcast. But Michael, the point that you said, like, by the only way through the fear is to fear it. Is to feel it. Is so true. And when we're talking about loneliness, when we're talking about being a gay man who experiences loneliness, note that I didn't say a lonely gay man, and that was a deliberate word choice. It's one thing to work through the fear that brings up in ourselves, but then, as you know, we've said, it's another thing to work through the fear of then doing something. And I want to explore one of those fears, and the fear of judgment, and judgment from self, judgment from other people, and judgment from and other people like closest to us. That's what I mean, and judgment from the community. And you know, I've got two podcasts, right? I've got the Lonely Diplomat podcast, and then there's Connection Over Coffee with the Loneliness Guy. All up, I've done, I don't know, like 27 plus 7, I don't know, 35 episodes of podcasts over the last 18 months. And each and every time, and like you, I do lots of videos on my social media channels, including here on the Loneliness Guy, shirtless, deliberately, so to stop gay eyes for just a moment to take in some difficult content, by putting my body out there in a way that I still have to wrestle within myself each and every time, the fear of judgment. So whether it's a picture, whether it's my voice, whether it's video, which is a combination of all of the other two, I have to work through the fear each and every time. And some days it's better than others. But how do you work through the fear?
Well, besides doing it over and over again, which again, I know there's a listener out there who's saying, oh, this is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, there is no, the best way is to just do it and to feel it and realize that you're not going to die at the end of it. When it comes to putting yourself out there, whether it's, like in a video on social media or writing or whatever, what I like to do before I post anything is I run it through one set of eyes, and that's my own. And I look at it and I say, is it good enough for me in this moment? And it's a very quick yes or no. And I'm getting a lot better at making those yeses less strict. And so I put it through myself. So let's say I write a blog. I did this a lot when I was writing, because my writing had a lot of more sensitive pieces, my blogs. And so I'd read it and I'd say, okay, am I going to publish this? And I would kind of say to myself, am I willing to get no likes, or am I willing to get totally rejected on this, or someone disagreeing with it? Will I stand behind it? And if the answer is yes, then I hit the publish button,
Right.
because then it passed my test. And that's really the only test that matters, or it should. I don't want to say that that's always the case, of course. Now, if something gets a lot of accolades and a lot of admiration, that's awesome. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say it doesn't affect me. It's obviously very nice. But my inner sense of self-worth, for all the Brene Brown fans out there, she talks a lot about this, is that worthiness is untouched, whether someone else likes it or not.
Yeah.
And I think the work that we do and the journey that we're all on, myself included, I'm by no means done, is getting to a place where you remember that more easily each time you put yourself out there.
Mm. Yeah. I, and that's it. That's it. This is why one of the reasons why authenticity and authentic is one of my core values in my work here at the Loneliness Guy, because it is about putting your real self out there, and it's not, something that we can do easily. Authentic connection to ourselves, to those we love, and to our communities requires us to go through this process. And I'm glad you raised Brene Brown, because she is my intellectual crush. And I credit her with, and her work with giving me the confidence to do so much in my life, from coming out to starting, different projects around loneliness, to actually engaging directly on the topic of loneliness rather than skirting around it to something a bit more palatable, through to how I relate to myself, how I parent, how I lead in my work, all this kind of stuff, by showing up and knowing that I don't have all the answers, but I'm pretty awesome as I am and can work it out and surround myself with some good people who can help me. And that sounds a lot easier to say than it is to do. But one of the things that we can do, and I'm keen to get your view on this, Michael, is to wait until we are perfect, to wait until we are good enough, wait until we are smart enough, wait until we are fit enough, like, in terms of body image, wait until we are wealthy enough, wait until we are something enough before we do something. In a really stunning example of a leading question, just how shit is that, Michael, an approach?
It is a terrible approach, because there's someone out there for whom you are enough now as you are today in this very moment without needing to do anything else. There is someone out there who is waiting for you to contribute whatever it is that, in your example, you're talking about waiting until you're ready to contribute and create something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's say it's a book or a podcast. There is someone out there who's just waiting to hear this book or read this book or hear this podcast. And you don't need to be anything more than you are today. You don't need more experience. You don't need, a nicer voice. You don't need to do all these different things before you can start contributing. And here's the thing. you have to start somewhere, right? Like if you wait until it's this level of good enough. So here's an example. My clients tell me this all the time. They want to wait until, yes, they're good enough. And I always ask this question and it always stumps them. So if you're listening out there and you're like, but no, I really want to wait until, I have the right equipment for the podcast or whatever, I will ask you this. How will you know when you've reached enough? I want a measurable, tangible result that will tell me and you when you've reached it. So I have a client who, before he starts putting himself out there dating, he said, I want to look better. I don't look good enough for gay culture. I'm like, okay, what is that? I'm like, give me a number. What is the weight? What is the size shirt or jeans? Like, give me something tangible, because what happens is this, and I've seen this happen because I did it. We keep moving the bar.
Yeah.
You keep moving the bar because the issue isn't the weight or what you think it is. The issue is fear. At the end of the day, it's fear. And that fear will follow you. The fear will follow you, and you will never have enough money. You will never look good enough. You will never have enough abs. You can have 18 abs, and until you do that work to deal with the fear, you will never be good enough or enough. I'm using quotes here for people who can't see.
Yeah.
So yes, set a limit. I mean, I get the fact that, you want to do a good job. So say, okay, you know what? I will create this podcast when I purchase this equipment. But then when you have it, your excuses are out. So just get on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those who, for new listener, I invite you to go and listen to episode 1 of this podcast, and go and have a listen to episode 1 of the Lonely Diplomat podcast. Be you a diplomat or not, and you will hear a stunning example of kind of sort of maybe lots of ums, lots of ahs, lots of lots of I don't know exactly how I'm going to finish this. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, fail fast and iterate is something that I do like. But yeah, the concept of enough, Michael, I really believe is something, and in a spoiler, this is going to be upcoming content over the coming weeks and months. This is on the list. This is on my awesome spreadsheet of content planning. But the concept of enough is so important, because when we hear it in ourselves, when I hear it in myself, it's an invitation for me to go, who says? And also, because it's generally me replaying a story that I've heard and have picked up as my own, or have completely made up. And what I also love about the concept of, when I'm something enough, that is an invitation to almost put the brakes on and do something right now to prove it wrong. But that's me. Hi, I'm Phil. I'm fiercely determined. And that's the way that I've flipped my, terrible stubbornness. And, I'm very determined. Say that I can't do something will just make me want to go and do it. And it is, for me, when I hear that, something, and this is what I love, and listener, I don't know, well, no, you didn't see me, but I wrote down tangible measurement, because I feel that's going to be on the promo for this episode. That's going to be the quote for this episode, and I don't want to lose it, because that is key right there. The fear stops us from doing whatever it is. The fear stops us from taking a step to move beyond the thoughts and feelings of loneliness. The fear stops us from speaking up in a meeting at work. The fear stops us from employing boundaries in our personal life because we fear what other people think. And the fear of not being enough goes right to the core. It's the clearest signpost of shame coming out in our lives, playing out in real time in our life. And that needs further exploration.
Do you think that there's anyone out there who does not have a sense of who doesn't at one point think they're not something enough, rich enough, good looking enough, smart enough, uh, good enough? I think shame is I mean, I don't really know anyone who hasn't experienced it on some level, even just the thought to themselves. Maybe they don't share it like you and I do, right? But um, I think that going back to what we talked about earlier, it's a universal feeling on some level. Like I think we all feel it as gay men. We definitely feel it
Yeah.
uh, more, just because we're gay. We are outside of the majority, and at least in my story coming out, I knew right from the jump that there was something different about me, and that different thing wasn't necessarily a good thing. And so immediately I had this program of not good enough in me, at me as who I am. So it's been a lot of untangling that and reconnecting to my sense of innate worthiness. And from that place of worthiness, that is where, I mean, all of the joys of my life have been sort of built on. Is yes, if I fall flat on my ass and I do something that's terrible and that sucks and everyone hates it, sure, that could happen. Of course that could happen. It is a risk. But that worthiness that I can lean on even on the worst days is what always gets me up. And I think shame and worthiness can't coexist.
I think that silence there was the sound of my mind being blown.
Because if you think about it, shame is basically, like you said, a feeling of not blank, not something enough, not good enough, right?
Yeah.
And worthiness is the opposite. Worthiness is knowing that you are.
Yeah.
So I think when those feelings of shame come up, of course it's going to be very hard to jump from shame to worthiness and like no 0 to 100. But I think the work that we do is learning how to soothe yourself and use tools of self-compassion to pivot into less shame and more worthiness on that beautiful grayscale spectrum.
Love this. And I want to say that we can't skip shame to get to worthiness, because that's
Mhm.
like skipping loneliness to get to connection.
Yeah, it's part of it. It's part of the process.
You must
Yeah.
go through it. You can't jump to success without going through fear.
Or failure for that matter.
Yeah, yeah. Fear of failure. Yeah. So the fear of failure, the fear of being seen, the fear
Yeah.
of whatever it is. Oh God, I'm going to have to write that down to make sure it makes it into the promo too. Like, worthiness and shame.
You know, I think for the listener out there who's listening to me and you right now, I'll speak on behalf of me, but I know you've told me you felt the same. But I don't. I think the biggest thing is I don't want someone out there to be listening to me saying, "Oh, easy for you to say," or "Oh, you've done all this work," or "Oh, you have the tools," or whatever. Like I experienced this right now, like an hour before we started this. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say? What if I make like a fool of myself? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I talk too fast? What if, all the things. Or, my I'm not good enough story that happened today was, um, I told Phil right before we started, I said, I'm afraid that I'm going to ruin your podcast.
Didn't say ruin. What did you say?
Fuck up?
Yeah, that's better. If we're going to be authentic, we're going to practice what we preach.
Right. So I was afraid that, I'm like, why does he want to talk to me? I'm not good enough. I'm not experienced in speaking. I'm not a podcast guy. And so that came up for me, but here I am. And so, yeah, I do want to take a minute to acknowledge everyone out there who thinks that, that me and you are special, or that other people in the world are different. I experience this every day. If you looked at if I showed you, if I showed everyone out there my thought journals, which I do every day, you would see a lot of not good enoughs. And it is a constant practice. It is a discipline, but it's worth it. And I don't have anything solved, but I'm committed to the process. And I think anyone out there has the ability today to start as soon as today to do the inner work required to really starting to untangle yourself from this and moving towards relief.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because vulnerability like that is always hard. Michael, thank you for sharing that. I truly mean that, because yeah, I know that you've been struggling / are struggling, continue to struggle, and I'm sorry to say, will continue to struggle.
Yeah.
The struggle can also be a sign that you're on your path.
Right.
You're not walking. You're not going down someone else's path. That, because if it's easy, it means, and I'm very visual in my imagination. If it does feel like you're hacking away at jungle with a machete, and it means that you're creating your path. If the walking is easy, if it's easy going, it means that you're on someone else's. Someone else has already done that work.
I like that.
Yeah, right. Thank you. And yeah, so some days for me, correction, almost every day, it feels like for me like a hard, not a hard slog as in like, punishment or whatever. Like, it's like the work that I'm doing, I feel truly passionate about. But God knows that it's not, that it's not an easy thing to do. I don't know what the end looks like. There are goals, there are all these kind of things that will help me get along the way. But yeah, sometimes it's very difficult to continue to put yourself out there. And I guess taking your lead there, Michael, I do want to share with the listener what I shared with you before we pressed record, and talking about how I wanted this podcast kind of sort of to go. And I wrote the blog post, "The World Needs You As You Are." I think that was the name of it. Anyway, there's going to be a link in the episode description. And I shared some work on that like a blog post on a Facebook group. And there was a response. That absolutely triggered me, because it was verbatim absolutely verbatim how my inner critic speaks to me about being not good enough. Who are you to be blah? What qualifications do you have to do this? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I responded from a place initially. I responded from a place of shame, where my traditional response is like, "You're right, I'm wrong." And after a little while, and I'll summarize it. But it was this whole process. It was an ugly afternoon. I was full of self-doubt, absolute wanting to give up. And if I was going to blog again, it was going to be a blog on something that everybody loved, like hot firemen holding puppies, and something that would be more palatable and acceptable and things like that. And I have done a lot of work within myself. I do work with people, both on the Loneliness Guy and the Lonely Diplomat, talking about working through our shame storms. And I went through a humdinger of a shame storm, and I realized what was happening, and I reached out. I spoke to someone who had earned the right to hear my story, and after a pretty poor night of sleep, it came to me. And actually, like the guy who responded to me, I actually at once feel sorry for him. I can see that he's lonely. He's exhibiting signs of loneliness by being like the boss of everybody on Facebook, this Facebook group. And if he doesn't agree, that he rains down hell on someone. So pretty much that Facebook group becomes bland. It becomes same. It becomes safe. It becomes completely ineffective, because everybody, perhaps not everybody, I can only speak, like, I'm still scared to engage on that, because, I don't want to incur his wrath. And I can't ever predict what wrath, I'm going to incur, because it changes all the time. But I'm very grateful to him because it, created changes in my work and how I present my work, to make sure that, I'm very upfront and clear that I'm not a licensed helping professional. But I have teamed with people who are licensed, who are accredited, who are awesome at what they do.
Yeah.
And yeah, but to me, that example, and I'm kind of shaking here, listener, like in retelling this, because I'm feeling it, like the initial response, and the seeing straight through to what my villain tells me each and every day, and looks for examples of how much I suck. And yeah, there's it takes so much to simply show up. And whatever showing up means that day, in that moment, making the phone call to someone who you wanted to talk to, and say, I need to have a chat, feeling lonely, right through to, I'm going to run for elected office. Like something that's like way visible, way public, way, exposing you and to external criticism. All of it requires courage.
And can I say courage, as nice as it sounds, anyone who's ever felt it knows it is not a pleasant feeling. Courage feels awful.
Yeah.
when you're in the midst of using it.
Yeah.
After you've used it, you can say you've lived to tell the tale, but courage is not it does not feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in that blog post, talking, about courage, and I want to say this really clearly because Michael, I know you agree, and I see this in you and your work daily. And it is like, even when, and I wrote this in the blog post, even when your voice shakes, even when the butterflies in your tummy threaten to erupt, the world needs you to speak, and the world needs you to show up just as you are right now. And that, if someone has a strategy, similar to if someone has a fantastic muffin recipe that they want to share, if someone has a strategy for quietening the butterflies, if someone has a strategy for having the voice not give away the level of nervousness and make me sound like I'm a 13, 14-year-old boy whose voice is breaking, then, I'm all ears.
The longer we wait for that day where there's no doubt, it just prolongs our misery, because I believe that there's a part of us, a deeper inner part of us, that would we want something. When you want to start a blog, when you want to start a podcast, when you want to write a book, whatever it is, you want to move to France, doesn't matter. If there's a deeper part of you that has a desire, it will just eat away at you, and it'll feel miserable until you start taking even one little action step a day towards it. And that fear of waiting for the right time for things to be perfect is just prolonging that emptiness, or it's prolonging that feeling that something is missing in your life. If I waited, if I was waiting for perfection, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't have helped those clients I've helped. I wouldn't have written the blogs I've written. And yeah, like the waiting is actually worse for the people who are waiting for you to just kind of, this is going to sound harsh, but get over yourself and start putting your beautiful self out there as it is today. Sure, you can improve. There's room for improvement, 100%. That doesn't mean you don't need to start now, or you don't have to start now.
I have lost count of how many times I loved everything of what you just said. Honestly, and as you were talking, and listener, as Michael was talking, I was writing down notes, and I hope you were too, because you've summarized it right there. The longer we wait, the more our misery is prolonged. And, while we're waiting for perfection, we're waiting for something that will never happen.
And here's the paradox: when you put out something that is maybe not great, but you do it. So for me, it was publishing that first blog. I felt so fucking good
Yeah.
when I hit publish, even though like no one had read it yet. I didn't even share it yet, but it was like I did myself a favor. It's like
Yeah.
something inside me said, "Finally, Michael, thank you. You did it." And it didn't involve anyone giving me any accolades, because like I said, no one read it yet. But even sending that signal to yourself saying, hey, I can take action for myself, for something that I believe in, that is such a beautiful, empowering feeling.
I really, there's nothing that I can say. There's nothing that I can say. My neck is like hurting from nodding. And yeah, it really, we can do things. I'll end with this. We can do things wanting other people to notice.
Of course.
We're also allowed to do things because we ourselves notice.
Yeah.
And it's that intrinsic versus extrinsic motivations that, you know, by giving that part of you a voice through writing your first blog. And yeah, and you know, I'll share that the blog posts that I write really quickly and don't sort of think about too much, don't construct, don't, you know, phrase eloquently at all, at least I feel, in my best, you know, best grammar, etc. They're the ones that people read. It's like, oh, don't read that. That's shit. that's awful. And you know, I reread them, and I've stopped doing this now, but like editing them and picking up the spelling mistakes or you know incorrect grammar usage or whatever. I'm like, nah, done as they are. Get them out. I might go back and add pictures in them or you know whatever it is. But it's the ones where I actually like turn up and write authentically that people go, oh, wow. So I don't want to do that. But wow, Michael, this is one of many reasons why I love chatting with you. I love that you're in my corner. I love that you're here in the world doing your work for gay men. Because you get it, you speak with authenticity out of that derive from the lived experience.
Thank you. I know that you do too, and that's why I love working with you as a partner, but also as a friend, which is very important.
Yeah, thank you. It's more than mutual, and I know that the listener is sitting there, you know, wanting me to pass on his thanks to you for coming and staying up late over in Ontario, but at the lake house there, to have a chat with us today. You are going to be a pretty regular guest on this podcast. I'm just saying thank you for having that response.
That's my reaction.
I don't actually think I told you that before, but you are.
No, yeah, that's a great surprise.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I could leave the listener with, it is that anytime you're going to embark on something you've never done before, whether it's something very simple like baking a new muffin recipe, or applying for a new job, or moving to a new country, or starting a podcast, whatever. Anytime you embark on something new, there will be doubt and there will be fear. There just will be. That is normal. That is a signpost that you are doing something new, and they're supposed to be there. It does not mean anything has gone wrong. It does not mean stop. It means, oh, you're doing something new. This is what happens when we do something new. And so that's one thing I can leave the listener with today. It would be that don't let the fear and the doubt prevent you from going for what it is your true inner heart desires.
I'm honoring that with my silence. Michael, how can people find you?
Well, as you Phil know, I'm very active on my Instagram. So that is Wellismo_Coach, WELLISMO_Coach. My website is www.wellismo.com. Those are the two best ways to contact me. If you want to send me a DM, I respond to all my Instagram DMs fairly regularly because I love the gram. Or you can read all of my blogs and check out my programs and coaching services on my website. So that is how you all can find me.
Excellent.
And I'd love to hear from you, by the way.
Your social media, I take notes, and I need to adopt that. Also, listener, if you are keen to check out Michael's services, you can access his services through thelonelinessguy.com, and that will take you to a landing page, and you are eligible, if you take up some of like one of Michael's programs, to a discount because you've come through the Loneliness Guy.
Yes.
And
if you're a friend of Phil's, you're a friend of mine. So let me know if you are.
excellent. I'll put all of this down in the episode description, and if you've come through this to listen to this through social media, you would have noticed that Michael's being tagged, every which way. You can go and check him out. Michael, as always, I'm both reluctant to end this, but that was my Google telling me that there is something coming up. I just am filled with gratitude for you both doing your work, being here, and freely dispensing so much wisdom all over the place during this chat over this coffee/wine.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I love the work you do, Phil. And I think it's very important, and I'm honored truly to be a guest here. And thank you so much for having me.
I will also just say before I hang up and end this episode, I should say, Michael, you are in the Loneliness Guys Premium Subscriber Lounge, and regularly dispense wisdom in that lounge. And listener, if you want to subscribe and stay connected to me and my work, I invite you, this is a standing invitation, to come and become a premium subscriber to the Loneliness Guy for the low monthly price of $9.95 Australian, which is about $3.50 US right now. It's like nothing. But it is a site that I am building for gay men who are working through the thoughts and feelings of loneliness. And we can only work through the thoughts and feelings of loneliness in a group. So the Facebook Premium Subscribers group is a place where you can come and get support from me and Michael and others in the group, as well as give support to me, to Michael, and others. So go to thelonelinessguy.com/subscribe for more details. And that's where you can catch us, both Michael and I, between coffees and between episodes. So, Michael, my dear listener, thank you so much for coming and connecting over coffee with the Loneliness Guy today.
Thank you so much.
See you later.
Bye.
That was great.
Whew.
How do you go? How do you feel? I'm still recording this, by the way.
Oh, okay. You can record it. Sure.
Yeah.
I stopped. It felt good. Yeah, it felt really nice. Oh my gosh, my words now they've lost me.
That's okay. That's okay now.
There were so many topics that I was like itching to get into, especially when we talked about people pleasing, perfectionism. I was like, oh my gosh, my brain, like, it's like you've hit all of the trigger points in a good way in my mind, and there's so much to talk about all of these topics, and they are all connected, and that's the thing. That's what I really I would love to just have people understand, that the emptiness, the stuckness, the loneliness, the perfectionism, the imposter syndrome. That's another one. Like, there's so many things, Phil. We can talk all day.
Yeah. Easily. And I could.
Yeah, I could too. Even though it's almost 10 o'clock, I'm like, now I'm jacked. I'm not tired anymore. I'm like, you got me intellectually stimulated, and I'm ready to go.
Good. Pay attention to that. But This is, and I reckon I can do this really, like, I'm going to spend a little bit of time this afternoon before heading into town to hang out with the kids after school. But I reckon that it's, yeah, going to be super easy to edit and get out there. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your patience. I know that I like, very fittingly, I know that the only way to get better at this podcast thing is to just do more of them. So thank you for allowing me to practice and show up on yours without having done any. I mean, I read your blog and your email, but I didn't have any notes. Very raw, and hopefully that is aligned.
Yeah. I tell you, it is a very good sign when, without notes, you know your shit, you know it, and
Yeah, I know. I know.
not only knowing it, you live it, and you're able to speak with such authority in a way that connects with people, that will resonate with people, and you can do that without preparation. Don't look now, but that's a really good sign that you're onto something.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, having this conversation really re-energized me, and it makes me want to go to all those jobs that I applied for and unapply for them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's. I know what you're saying.
But I know I have to pay my bills, so yeah, I'll keep those. But no, this was very good. I really needed this today to kind of remind me why I love this work, even though it's not necessarily lucrative. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a very hard yes from me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I should listen to my own advice, because as I'm talking to you, I'm like, I feel that passion. It's like the inner voice of me is like, yes, bitch,
Yep.
this is what
Yep.
you should be doing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Me
I speak to
too.
myself that way. I don't speak to myself. That's not derogatory B word. It's like a nice, I'm like a thug sometimes with the way I talk to myself.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's better than alternatives, perhaps. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not going to say no. I speak to myself in the most horrid ways. It's awful. So, and then I catch myself and I'm like, whoa, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. When I speak like that, it's usually nice. The funny thing is, even though the language isn't, but then when my actual inner critic shows up, he's very serious. He does not use those words. He's very like,
Ah,
he's very authoritative, like he's reading the news. Like, no, you're not good
oh,
enough. That's a fact. It is a fact. You are not good enough. And I'm
yeah.
like, but
In
is
breaking
it?
news, in breaking news on the CBC, right?
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Who's the newsreader on the national, or on the 6 o'clock news or something like
Well, it used to be Peter Mansbridge. I forget who it is now. I don't watch. I watch the. I haven't seen it in a while.
that? Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm. Yeah, mine's just a bastard. I love him, but you know, he and I are friends now, and that's going to be something on a blog in the future, very near
So when
future.
will this
So that,
be? When will this all be like released? Because I'll want to share it, of course, on my
yeah.
everything.
So Thursday. So Thursday here. So Thursday morning, like 5 a.m., which is like Wednesday afternoon, something like that.
Okay. So Wednesday afternoon, I can expect to, for my content calendar, I will leave Wednesday afternoon with a whole bunch of goodies.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So what I want to do is use some of those sound bites, and particularly like the signpost. There was one there that, like, prolonging misery and waiting to be perfect, and signposts that are supposed to be there to tell you that fear is a signpost to tell you that you're doing something hard.
yeah.
So many pearls of wisdom. So many pearls of wisdom. It was awesome. So I'm going to wrap this up and eat. I haven't eaten yet, and then get cracking on some editing.
Okie dokie.
All right. Well, be awesome. Thank you so much. I love and appreciate you, and have a safe trip back to Toronto tomorrow.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your Monday.
Living the dream. Living the dream. All right. And viewer, if this ever goes to air and you've made it this far, well done. What is it about politics and podcasts? Probably nobody wants to see the sausage being made. So yeah, this probably was gruesome viewing of some respect.
Well, we're just going to take the parts that work and then cut the rest, right?
Sure. Must
That's what I'm going to do.
Must learn how to edit that. I think what I might do is just sort of post it post it somewhere, and because people read to take in information, people listen, or people like to watch. So
there's ways around this, but if you have to go, I can text you. You can edit in iMovie. If you do it in YouTube, you could put and you don't want to edit it, you can put the timestamp of where shit gets good.
Yeah.
That way they just click on like the timestamp and it starts there. You can edit it in iMovie and cut the beginning and cut the stuff and then just have a condensed, but there's ways around it.
Yeah. I think I'm a big fan of authenticity. And I've got a PC, so I don't have iMovie.
Okay. Well, I'm going to use iMovie to edit it.
Go crazy. Do what you need to. And I might just take what you do. I'll still post this, but yeah, I'll happily pick up what you throw down.
Okay.
Awesome, Michael. Much love. I'll speak to you in a few days if we're still going to do Friday.
Thursday,
yes. Friday. Yeah. Remember, on the good side of the date line, where
right,
on the cutting edge. All right.
Okay.
Go be awesome.
Bye. You too.
All right. See ya.